Yeah, that's not happening.
We're pretty much going to die a lot.
Alright, and welcome back. This time we're going to try to go to another orbital body within our local system. So that is, our local system is Kerbal, which is an analog to Earth. Kerbal, unlike our Earth, has 2 moons instead of 1. So you have one called the Moon, M-U-N. You have another one, a very tiny one, called Minmus. Minmus is very small, it moves very slowly, and it has not a whole lot of gravity. So getting there is a slight bit of a challenge, but it can be done. And we're going to do that today. So notice that I've started already in an orbit. It doesn't really matter what the shape of it is. And Kerbal Space Program in the more recent update allows me to target things. For example, I can click on the Minmus orbit and click Set as Target. So, do you remember in the last video I talked about something called inclination? Inclination is essentially my angle relative to this orbit. So if you notice, if I look at this orbit from the side, Minmus is at this crazy angle, so even if I increase my apoapsis, I'm still wildly missing it. So I need to kind of get to that angle. So what the game does, is it finds the point where our orbits actually intersect, where they're almost at the same elevation. At those points, I can burn north and south in order to turn my orbit relative to Minmus's orbit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. That's going to be the first thing I go ahead and do. Now, when I hover over descending node, it doesn't tell me when I'm going to arrive there, only how many angles I have, how many degrees I have left to fix. So, because this is descending node, I want to burn upwards. I want to stop descending relative to this orbit. So I'm going to go turn towards north. Note the fact that I want to be level with the horizon. There we go. Just give me a moment. And I'm pressing T to enable something called SAS, which it essentially tries to stop or lock my motion. Now, as I approach descending node, I'm going to start thrusting a little bit and see what I can do about bringing that descending node down. It's most efficient when I burn at descending node, but when you know you're not going to accomplish it, sometimes it's good to start beforehand. There we go. Descending node is now 0.0. Now if I were to look at this orbit from the side, as if I were to zoom all the way out, you'd notice that I'm no longer nearly so crazy relative to this orbit. I'm now aligned with this orbit. So I want to get out to Minmus. Because of the positioning here, I'm actually going to burn at apoapsis, because when you have an apoapsis which is higher than your periapsis, you are actually moving slower. So what I want to do is I want to have this really low periapsis, so I don't have to expend all that delta V, but I want to have a really high periapsis, so that at some point, as I'm moving very slowly, I make contact with Minmus. So I'm going to go ahead and burn towards that. Not burn towards that, but accelerate towards that. Now this point right here is about right for an acceleration towards Minmus. This point I'm at is going to become my new periapsis. You notice that my prograde direction is very similar to the location of Minmus. In general, there's math you can do to get this perfect, but I'm just going essentially like rules of thumb here in order to do it. Just let me get aligned. Come on. I'm using the rotation available in my command module here. What I'm actually doing is I actually have a base on Minmus that I'm going to deliver this guy to. But I'm using this as an example. So I turn prograde. Let me know in the comments what you think of the audio this time around. I know my episodes 1 and 2, the audio was a little derpy. I tried to turn down the volume in KSP and try to see what that would do. I do know that my ships are loud, so I'm trying to compensate for that as much as I can. Notice the fact that my apoapsis is moving out rather quickly. That's okay. I'm going to slow down as it approaches Minmus and wait for it to tell me what I need to do to make Minmus happen. There we go. So you see I get these blue indicators here. These are my closest approach. I want these to be as minimal as possible. So separation is 15,000 kilometers. I want to make that smaller. Alright, so I now have a orbit with Minmus. You notice this blue body here is Minmus's position when I encounter it, and this periapsis over here is my periapsis when I hit Minmus. I don't want to hit Minmus. So I press shift and hit control really fast because tiny little adjustments make all the difference in the world. I burned too far. But it's okay. I fix. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to touch my mic. Now, you may notice that I seem to have two orbits here. The purple orbit is the orbit after I escape Minmus. So right now on this orbit I will be captured by Minmus and then almost immediately burn away. That's not what I want to do. Alright, I like this periapsis. So I'm going to go ahead and accelerate towards that. Now you notice that I almost have this kind of shape out here that goes out towards Minmus. It's going to take me a while to actually get there, but one thing that you will definitely notice is that as I approach my apoapsis relative to how I seem to just kind of fly out there, I get slower and slower and slower as I approach apoapsis. That happens with these extreme apoapses. And here comes Minmus. Alright. So now, I want to aim for this specific base. Let me see if I can actually add that. Let me see if I can actually target the base. The first thing I want to do is I want to circularize this orbit. Looks like I might actually be able to aim straight for the base. Notice that the base itself is over here. Let me see if I can... Can I target the base? I cannot target any of this. Oh well. I'm going to have to manually do this. I'm going to wait for periapsis, because that's my most efficient point to lower my apoapsis. And I want my I want to collide with the surface here. You'll see why. Alright, time to burn retrograde. I notice I'm a little low on fuel on these stages and I want to use them to land. So I'm going to go ahead and just quickly transfer some fuel. It may mean that this personnel carrier will never actually make it back. That's a-okay with me. So to transfer between two fuel tanks, what I can actually do is I can right-click one, and I can right-click the other. And I can click to transfer in. Now what I'm going to do is once I'm once I land, I'm going to transfer all of this back up into that tank, or whatever's left back up into that tank. But right now I need this fuel in order to land. See? So now this tank is empty, this tank is full, right? So let's go ahead and land. Notice how, because of how small Minmus is, it doesn't take a whole lot of force to get anything done. So that's why it's okay for me to use all this fuel, because it's not really, like, I can sneeze and end up somewhere totally else on Minmus. The only reason that I want this dead weight is essentially I want my engines to be more finely controllable. That's actually, I'm deliberately carrying around more weight than I really should. So you'll notice that this line starts to collide with Minmus. I want it, because Minmus will rotate before I actually get there, I'm actually going to deliberately undershoot the base a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and turn north. Come on, turn north. There we go. Now, no matter what, I'm going to successfully land on Minmus, because Minmus is actually has little enough gravity that, like, theoretically, if something goes horribly wrong with my ship, I can get out and push. I'm not even joking. I've actually done that before, where I knew landings were going to be a failure, so I just kind of jumped out the window and used my Kerbal thrusters to get it done, and just kind of land safely. I found it really amusing. Oh, by the way, this is totally what Minmus looks like. It's actually really interesting. So, the Minmus base that I landed in, I landed it on one of the ice fields. I'm going to go ahead and shorten up that orbit so I land in the right place. Minmus is a oblong rock with almost like a sea level ice. So there's this constant, like, altitude that you cannot go below, that anything below is ice, and it's actually ideal to land on that because it's almost perfectly smooth. It's amazing. So let me go ahead and shorten that. Come on, there you go. Okay. And now we wait some more. So notice, because Minmus is so small, it's rotating very fast. And because it's rotating very fast, the point where I theoretically land keeps shifting and changing. So I want to go a little further towards the south here, because remember, I want to land on the ice. So let me go ahead and do that. Just kind of burn towards the... What did I do? Oh, that's what happened. Okay. One of my tanks ran out of fuel because I transferred it wrong. Okay. Let me fix that. Alright, so 215. What's 215 divided by 2? It's got to be something like 107. Somewhere in that ballpark. Okay, that's about it. Okay, cool. I got it. I fixed. There we go. That makes a little more sense. Things are moving very well. I need to turn retrograde and reduce my profile again. Now, note that I'm getting very close to the actual base. You can see it down there. Kind of. I want to deliberately undershoot it a little bit. There we go. Now let's watch this descent. Getting a little close to the surface here. So I'm going to wait until horizontally I'm a little closer to the base itself. And then, let's go ahead and land. Note that I'm cutting it a little close. Okay, cool. Note that it doesn't take a whole lot to kill my relative velocity. Minmus really does not have a whole lot of gravity. I just kind of push my retrograde over towards directly vertical. There we go. This way I can see. Now note that my descent is very nearly a perfect line down. Do this very gently. There we go. So now that my retrograde is perfectly, almost perfectly at least, aligned with the surface, I can go ahead and do this. Now you may notice that my orbit looks a little cockeyed. How does that make sense when I'm falling perfectly straight down? Well, remember, Minmus is moving very quickly. That is, it is turning very quickly. So I am moving at the same speed that Minmus is turning, which, in the terms of an orbit, looks like an actual horizontal movement. But because I'm moving perfectly with the surface of Minmus, it's not really a problem. You can see that there's a few things that I've landed there. And I might bring one of them back for my next video. You guys tell me if you want me to do that. Let me go ahead and start fixing up my descent here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any lights on this thing, otherwise I might have been able to show you the surface. But you can see that I'm pretty much there. I just need to not strike the ground nearly so hard. Just to give you an idea of how close, there you go. See? I don't know if you can see it in the video, but you can kind of see the grain of the ground very close here. can actually see the light of my engines against the ground. Come on. There we go. Wait for this. Let's see if I can deploy my feet here. The feet do nothing. Let's go ahead and do this transfer. Send all this stuff back up to these this bigger tank. There we go. Now let's go to the base. Put this guy on EVA. Now let's say you have an EVA. You can toggle this pack with R. Now I'm going to press space to get out of here. R to toggle the pack. Now the controls here are shift to thrust up, control to thrust down. So what I can do is I can use W to press forward and move forward. And just kind of, because there's no air resistance pushing back against me, I'll just kind of keep going that fast, and all I really have to do is use shift to keep above the surface so I don't strike against the surface. So let me go ahead and head over to my Minmus base over here. Looks like I accidentally hit the ground. This is just kind of annoying. Note the fact that Minmus' surface is nearly perfectly smooth, so I'm just kind of sliding here like it's an ice rink. But you can see how much distance I've put between here and the rocket. I should be able to get that thing back to Kerbal. I might do that on the next video. Alright, let me see if I can tumble him a little bit, see if I can slow him down. Now, note that Kerbals will not die because of being ground against things, but they will die due to force. So let's say that I'd hit this going a little too fast. It probably would have killed him, but it's very hard for me to do that. Most of what will kill them is hitting it vertically too hard. So let's say that I had dropped him from orbit without slowing down, he probably would have died. But if I had simply jumped out of orbit and maneuvered him like this, I probably could have landed him, which is what I meant earlier. I might actually deliberately show you guys a suicide jump onto the surface of Minmus. That would actually be kind of cool. I kind of want to do that. I am going towards a return. There we go. I missed the base and I was heading towards something else. Sorry about that. This is the base. Note that I have some floodlights there so everyone can see what they're doing. And the door inside is actually over on this side, I believe. Let me go ahead and just over to that. Now, as I approach it, once I actually make contact, I believe it's space I can press to actually grab onto the ladder. No, it's F. Okay, so I grab it, I press F to board, and I've delivered him there. Now that he's on there, I can actually left-click on that door, and I can see all the Kerbals I brought over. I've actually filled up the Minmus space now. And this is the original two pilots. So Minmus space is now full. You guys watched me do it, and now you guys know how to do it. I might cover how to build a base lander like this. You notice that this lander doesn't seem to have a lot of engines or anything. It just kind of seems to be here. Don't worry, I didn't hack and put this here. That thing got landed legitimately. Thank you, like, comment, subscribe, give me your feedback, tell your friends about me.